after the I wore Poppy Day memorial of those who died. But now, with the new Europe and the free interchange of intellectuals and so on, we have many German friends. And one of them gave me a book of poems by a German poet called Hans Magnus Enzensberger, who apparently is one of the most distinguished poets in German writing at the moment. He's a couple of years probably older than I am, so he was a boy during the war. In his poems, he will have a poem which has some interspersed remark from somebody else. And so in the margin on the right, he puts the name of the person who wrote that, rather than in a footnote. So you don't have to go to a footnote, you see immediately who it was. Now when I read this poem, I'm imitating his style and his method of doing that. So I put in the right-hand margin the name of somebody I'm quoting. And so when I read the poem, I'll read, and then I'll read the name, and then I'll carry on with the poem. It's called Perennials for Hans Magnus Enzensberger. Born all set for the Great Depression, there's always something amiss, Enzensberger. You grew somehow amid turmoil and tantrums of an upstart leader, begging the devil for another empire to build pitiless from ruins of older ones. In that age of heartbreak for many, I toddled across the wind-moaning moors and then climbed amid rubble and slag heaps on my fast-growing legs, back in my bombed city of blackouts, over soot-soiled grass I'd roam. You had your adolescence of desolation too, amid ruins of bombed cities and defeat among foreigners in the occupied zones. Yet bliss came along by a fluke, as you would say, consolation. When I'd signed my armed forces will and testament, I worked only just a man in your old capital, wandered among floodlit building sites where men and women rebuilt alongside each other places for new father and mother. I passed beneath and behind those checkpoints to find desolation decreed for half a country by that avuncular wolf in the Kremlin. Moscow River, that's a call sign of an air traffic controller. Moskva Reka, it is in Russian, but Moscow River in English. Moscow River directed the new killer jets of Tubby Khrushchev, rid of Bulgaria. There's always something amiss at Enzensberger. Yet they were possible, the moments of bliss, despite loudspeaker propaganda in Alexanderplatz. Was a new country on the cards? Businessmen and policymakers placed their bets. Poems are sprouting dandelions, poems with gossamer seeds dundering across the great continents, turning waste ground and fallow into beds, where they grow into buds on milky bitter stems, feeding the yellow. For cowslips sweet, let dandelions spread. Gay. Now that's Gay who wrote the Beggar's Opera. Your poetry surprises and refuses with a flower's particular scent to be trampled down. Your poetry, springing from rocks by the sea, planted almost hidden, a butterfly bright, violet, another perennial plant, favoured also by the muses. But you can't imagine it. Aber das kannst du nicht. Enzensberger. So I wrote that this year. And I should just say about Gay, why mention Gay, why quote Gay in a poem on a German poet? Because Gay wrote The Beggar's Opera, and of course Bertolt Brecht, the German playwright, stole The Beggar's Opera and turned it into the modern opera with Marxist ideas behind it, with Mac the Knife, the famous song of Mac the Knife. So Enzensberger would like, I think, the reference to Gay. By the way, when the Beggar's Opera was such a success in 18th century London, that the producer was called Rich, the man who owned the theatre and everything, theatre manager. And Gay, of course, was the author. And an 18th century wit in one of the coffee houses said, well, you know, Beggar's Opera made Gay rich and rich gay.